I roped him and tied it. Bad mistake. I tied him to my four-wheeler. That four-wheeler ain't going to hold that donkey. That donkey drug me all over that pasture. Well, that made me mad. So I go get my four-wheel drive truck, and I have this Drew Kent right in the back, and then Duncan was on there, and we had him tied around the ball, and I was going to take him to that lower farm. It went about a half a mile down there. And I said, one thing about it, he was fighting the rope, and I said, he'll either learn how to lead time we get there, or he's going to have some sore feet, one or the other.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Hayden Alabama Podcast. I'm Philip.
I'm Shane.
I'm Matthew.
I'm Keith.
We got a father-son duo tonight from Susan Moore, Alabama, the home of the Bulldogs.
That's correct.
Purple and white.
So welcome to the Shedio.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Yeah. They're a little bit stunned tonight because we decided to totally rearrange everything.
We did, and they had to sit here and watch us.
Yeah, for 30 minutes. We were like, what do you think about this? What do you think about this?
We just want to tell stories.
Well, I think that's a good segue. Let's go ahead and get started with the storyteller. Matthew, kick us off with a good one.
You know, I remember with the cold weather coming in, what we call the blizzard of 93 when it came to big snow. And we was wanting to play and didn't know what to do. And so he had a pickup truck. Now, get to one of my stories. That pickup truck will be part of the story. But we took the bed liner out of that truck, it wasn't a spray-in back then. It was just a quarter-inch plastic bed liner. And so he had a John Deere tractor, and we called the neighbors and church friends, and we hooked that bed liner up and pulled it going down the road. Obviously, there wasn't any traffic. Well, our neighbor, maybe not even a mile down the road, this lady, she had on a pair of skis, and she was walking in that snow, and you can imagine how it was, just flopping back and forth. And we was going beside her, and she wanted us to pull her. And so she reaches out and grabs a hold of that bed line of that truck. Had one, I guess she's holding her slalom in her one hand, and we got a little piece up. And next thing I know, you look behind us, and there wasn't any lady. All you saw was two skis sitting up in the air, and then she's trying to fight that snow to get up, and she couldn't get up. And
in her defense, 3-foot drifts is what I remember. So she could have been buried.
Oh, when you look behind her, you couldn't see her body at all.
Matthew said it best there. He said it snowed and we didn't know what to do. I mean,
and then he evidenced that they didn't.
Yeah, that's a fact.
We didn't have a clue what to do. We went to Ohio this past week and we saw a little bit of snow. And of course, that got Holland's interest peaked. And she said, "Daddy, what if it snowed for 10 days at the house?" I said, "Sissy, we just all going to meet in glory because we ain't going to know what in the world to do with 10 days worth of snow in Alabama."
There'd be a lot of land for sale in Alabama because 50% of the population would die.
They'd be gone.
That's a fact.
Did y'all stay in the bed liner
Oh,
and keep having a ball?
We rode that thing
Rode the bottom out
for
of it.
miles.
Rubbed the hole in it.
Run a hole in it.
I will say this, that bed liner never got put back in that pickup truck.
Was it worth it?
Oh, absolutely.
I've got questions on how she acquired a set of skis. Were they
She was
snow
from
skis?
Colorado.
Oh.
She was from Colorado, she said.
She had them handed down.
She's one of them neighbors that doesn't talk like we do, if you know.
Yeah, she talks a little quicker.
They ain't got a little accent.
I figured they were water skis. I never gave the credit to being from Colorado.
Actually, I would almost 100%. At the time, I didn't know it, but I'm sure they was water skis.
Her slalom.
Oh,
Or
they
she
was.
sold those snow skis.
They was
before
about
she
8
left
foot
Colorado.
long.
They're good ones.
Well, you say what are they called? Slaloms?
But that's the single.
Oh,
What's the double? I don't.
You think I'm from Alabama? I got no idea.
Well, she had two of them.
Snow canes.
They weren't canes. It was all there was broom handles that she unscrewed out of the broom.
Yeah. I think they're probably called snow poles.
Snow
Ski
poles.
poles or something like that.
I have no idea. I'm sure somebody on that.
We'll get hammered.
That'll be y'all's homework for next
Somebody's
That's
going to
right.
let us know.
Yeah.
Tell you what
Don't
that
worry.
is.
Just
Find
check the
out.
comments if you want to know what the real thing is. They'll tell us. Mr. Keith, what you got? Mr. Snow Puller Man.
Well, everybody has a weak stomach story, you know that. And I've had several people work for me through the years. And when I was in the trucking business, I had a farm in the valley. Called it the Branham Farm. I bought it from Mr. Branham, but I had a cow that had a calf, and she didn't shed her afterbirth. You know, those of y'all been around cattle, you know, it just had that old nasty stuff hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, back then, the way you done it, you had to let it actually rot out 10 or 12 days before you could mess with her. Well, I had these 2 Hispanic boys working for me, and I told them I had her locked up in the barn. I said, we're going to go tend to that cow right quick. And they said, Mr. Kid, can we eat going down there? I said, sure, get you something to eat. So they was eating burritos going down the road there. And then we got in there, and I run her in the chute, and I told them, I swung that thing around. I said, now, whatever you do, don't let this nasty tail hit me. You hold this tail. This thing's nasty. So I had a glove on. I run up in there, and I grabbed that stuff, and I pulled it out. And when it come out and hit that air, you can imagine what it smelled like. Them 2 boys hit the ground. They lost the burrito sometime they was spewing. And this, man, you ain't right. And I just said, man, you got to hold your breath. You can't daggone smell. You got to hold your breath. And we got done anyway, and I let the cow out and gave her some medicine, and we was getting ready to go. And I said, hey, you boys, get that up now. It makes good burritos. It's good and tender. They spewed again. They lost it again. I said, man, you're awful. I said, I can't believe y'all done that twice. But that was something else, them boys.
Can't believe you done it twice.
Yeah, good and tender.
Oh, no way! That'd have got me. I think I almost got Philip over here thinking about it.
Because you took me to the tail end of that cow, and I could smell it. I said, because you think that once that bacteria starts doing what it's supposed to do,
it gets to stinking.
I'm gonna say putrid.
It's putrid enough to make you puke.
They got to learn to hold their breath.
Well, I would at least give them a little.
Well, I thought they'd have a little sense to hold their breath. Not that gum just sit there breathing like catfish when I done got that thing out of there, boy. Because it didn't take them long. Both of them hit. What was bad about they hit their knees? They couldn't just stand up and throw up. They hit their knees.
Now, when you said this is how you used to do it, is there a better way nowadays?
I don't think they do it that way anymore. I think they just give them medicine and they'll pass it on their own. Because I had to take some big old boluses and go in there when I pulled it out back in their uterus and let them go in there. And then you give her some shots and she'll shed it and get okay, you know. But
you being in the cattle business, they is some bad situations you get in.
Are you in trouble? Well, we hope you're not. But just in case you are, we know a good lawyer. Whitney Island here in Hayden, Alabama has law services. Or maybe if you're not from Hayden, I'm sure she'd be happy to hear from you. So check her out at islandlaw.com. We appreciate Whitney and her sponsoring the show.
I got another one I can tell you if you want to hear another one about that. And you know the guy. Works at the pipe yard with me, Dennis. Mm-hmm. I had a cold branch rent at that time. It was real cold that winter. And it didn't get above freezing for like 3 weeks. Well, I was losing cows like crazy. I get the vet out there, and he'd send blood samples off and everything. He said, I don't know what's going on. Well, come find out they was freezing to death. They were nowhere from get out of the shelter over there, no pine thicket. And their body temperature never got above freezing. So they were just, all the wicked cows was dying. Well, we didn't have time to deal with it, so I hauled them down to that same farm. I called it Brown Farm, with nobody around there, and we just unload them. Well, I had about 20 of them over a 3-week period that had passed away. Well, it warmed up one day, about like today, got a little warmer, and so I took my backhoe down there, gonna bury them. And Dennis, in my other hand, EC was with me, and he wanted to eat his sandwich on the way down there. I said, well, that'll be fine. So he ate him 2 bologna cheese sandwiches, and we got down there, and I just started digging. I got on this side of the cows, and I was digging a big old long ditch. And old Dennis, he walked around the other side of the cows and propped up on a pine tree. He propped 1 foot up on it, and he was right back there, and he thumped his old snuff can. He packed it full, and he was sitting there looking. When I got done doing that, I just moved back down and reached over, gonna get them cows, just drag them in the hole.
With a backhoe.
Well, yeah. Well, they was real big, swelled up, and that first one I got, that tooth protruded her side. That thing made a racket, and all that gas come out on him. And he took off running for some reason. But he didn't go far. He hit his knees, and he lost his sandwiches in there. His son-in-law was laughing at him. And he got up and run again. He done it again. He didn't go 4 foot, and he hit the ground again. He said, man, that's awful. I said, I can't believe you was right there at it. You know what's going to happen.
You knew what was fixing to happen.
But you asked him next time you see him, he'll remember that to the day he dies, I guarantee you.
You will not forget that right there.
Yeah, a lot of people, I got a weak stomach, but I got to hold my breath or run there and dive in there and then get back out. I can't stand there and smell it.
There's a dive and dip, man.
Dive and dip for sure.
I hold my breath changing the baby's diapers.
Yeah, much less when you're doing bury a big old sneaky dead cow that's done swelled up. My brother had cattle. We've had cattle together for a while, and we went up to the upper pasture one day, and there was cow down and was trying to deliver. And I told him, I said, I'm immediately going call the vet. That's my first move. My brother's first move is, I think I can get the chains and pull the calf. Well, it's kind of a cool day like you're talking about, and he was in his overalls, in his get-up, and so we went and got the chains, go back up there, and he goes to work, and there's no clean way about that. When a cow is down in the middle of a pasture, she's been walling around, there's manure and everything else around where she's been, so he is immediately covered in cow manure immediately. Well, he reaches in, he starts trying to hook one of the feet of the calf with a chain so he could get it started out. Well, he can't get there, tries to reach again, can't get there, and I'm getting more and more frustrated. I'm saying, Stephen, go get the chain, or go get the phone, and let's call the vet. So he decides that he is bound and determined to pull this on his own. I leave him. I'm like, you were on your own, And I leave. I come back. He is undressed from the head down to his waist because he has gotten so much manure and everything else on him. And he is as far in a cow as I've ever seen anybody reach. I mean, up to his shoulder, reaching, trying to grab this calf and turn it around. And I said, what are you doing? Like, are you going to listen to me and call the vet now or not? He said, I ain't got enough money to call the vet. I got to pull it. And I said, oh, now we've determined what the issue is. He had determined he ain't going to pay the vet. It's all about saving that money. But he done got in a mess trying to pull that calf.
Yeah, it don't take you long, I promise you.
Matthew, you wrote down a few things. I want to hear your next one.
Well, back to the truck bed or the bed liner. So Daddy had a 86 S10 he bought brand new, and we drove the wheels off that thing. It was a 4-speed manual transmission. Daddy was at work, so Mama was going to take me to practice. Well, at our house, at Daddy's house, there's 2 driveways. It's probably 200 foot apart, maybe, kind of a circle drive. Well, back then, it was a dirt road. We lived on a dirt road, and Mama was trying to drive that truck. Well, she pulled off the driveway, headed to the school. Well, her foot slipped off the clutch, and that thing she hit the gas, and it was throwing gravel everywhere. I'm talking about just spinning out and bouncing, all the way. She spun tires all the way to the other driveway, and I'm sitting in there, and I'm like, man, what am I going to do if she does this in front of all those high school kids? And so I said, Mama, I tell you what, when we get to the school, I said, you just slow down real slow, and I'll just jump out. You ain't got to stop. I thought she was going to spin out again. And she said, no, I'll stop. She said, I'll tell you what. She said, if I do it again, she said, you just go in there and tell them, man, my mama's bad to the bone driving that car. And so I don't know what day of the week it was, but Sunday rolls around, and our neighbors went to church with us. And the lady was like, man, she came up to Mom, and she's like, what was you mad about the other day? And she's like, what do you mean? And she said, I was on my porch, and I seen you said you stomped that car. Spun out. She just said, well, I really wasn't mad. I just didn't know how to drive. And so, I figured right then I wasn't going to drive or ride in a straight ship of Mom.
She taught
learned real quick.
She couldn't handle the clutch.
It's funny how we worry to death over what somebody's going to think about us when we're in middle school, high school. Worry.
Oh, I was going to be embarrassed.
Oh,
if
yeah.
she spun out in front of all them players, I was going to be humiliated.
What am I going to do now?
And all they'd have done is laughed and not thought another thing
No.
about it. But we worried to death about it. That's what when I drove girls up there in that 99 Buick LeSabre front door of the school, I'm just sitting there grinning. They can't get out fast enough.
They ready to leave the LeSabre.
Yeah.
I love that car.
Man, it rides like a Sealy mattress.
Oh, memory foam.
Except it ain't got no memory. It's constantly changing.
Those seats wore out.
No, I'm telling you,
it's
it truly is. I mean,
It's top notch.
you ride down the road like this. You just glide down the road. Well, Mr. Keith, what you got on your list next?
Well, back to the cow business. I had this guy that worked for me, one of the best workers I ever had. He's already dead and gone now, but he was working for me. He'd take the best of care for animal you ever seen. I'm talking about he was really top notch. Well, I had a farm rented close to that other farm in the valley down there, and my brother had coyotes bother me. So my brother gave me a little young donkey. He said, he never been handled now. So I put that donkey in there. Well, it wasn't about 3 weeks. The guy down the road had some mares on the corner lot, and he called me. Well, he come up there. I was up there tending them cows, and he was saying some choice words. He wanted that donkey off his place now. Well, it was in the summertime, and I went up there and I chased that donkey for about an hour. I about had a heat stroke and couldn't catch that thing. So I finally got him hemmed up, and I roped him and tied it. Bad mistake, I tied him to my four-wheeler. That four-wheeler ain't going to hold that donkey. That donkey drug me all over that pasture. Well, that made me mad. So I go get my four-wheel drive truck, and I have this Drew Kent right in the back, and then Duncan was on there, and we had him tied around the ball, and I was going to take him to that lower farm. It went about a half a mile down there. And I said, one thing about it, he was fighting the rope, and I said, he'll either learn how to lead time we get there, or he's going to have some sore feet, one or the other. Well, we was going down the road, and he'd go a little bit, and then he'd stop, drag his feet, and I'd just keep on, had it in low gear, just driving on. Well, all of a sudden, he started hollering out, boss man, he's had a heart attack, he's fell over. So I get out and go back there, and it's right in front of this woman's house. It's one of them, got dogs everywhere. She takes care of them animals, one of them PETA people, I guess you'd say. But she got up and started looking out. I said, oh, man, what we going to do now? So I had them boys, I had the truck backed up, kind of blocking her a little bit. Well, she just walked out the edge of the yard, and she was trying to look around that truck. And I said, man, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So I told Duncan and Drew, I said, I tell you what y'all do. I said, I'm going to set that donkey up, and y'all sit there and pet that donkey. And I'm going to go home and get my trailer, and we'll come back and drag it in the trailer. And so I was about 5 miles to my house. So I'd head off, go up the hill and get that trailer, and I come back down there, and there's a little hill before I get there, and I topped that hill, and there Drew was. He had that donkey laying in his lap, and him and Duncan just pet that donkey like it's still alive. I put it there and blocked them off and put it in that trailer and hauled it into the farm, disposed of it, buried it. But I said, I cannot believe that. And Drew remember that. You asked Drew about it. He remember that. I can't believe I've been petting a dead donkey for 30 minutes on the side of the road.
Wait, get back.
What's the things you'll do to stay out of trouble,
man.
right?
I was a nervous wreck, man. I said, they're going to get me for all this stuff right here on the side of the road.
Donkey slaughter.
Yeah. But that goes to show, you heard hard-headed as a mule. I guarantee you, they ain't that no harder-headed than a mule or a donkey.
Mule or a donkey.
They are hard-headed now.
We've had a few tales about donkeys and the facts that they would rather leave this place as opposed to do what you asked them to do.
For sure. That's for sure.
So you think you probably had a heart attack?
I guess it did. Because Duncan performed CPR on it. That was the funniest thing. He had his hand up to his nostril, and he was blowing that donkey's nose. And he hit him on the chest and said, breathe, donkey, breathe. I said, oh, man, I don't think you're doing no good. He said, yeah, I'll get him back to life. I said, I don't think so.
I don't think you're doing no good, Duncan.
I said, I was just going out the other side of his nose, man.
Now, Matthew, you're in medicine. What's the compression and breath rate on a donkey?
I don't know. You better lay on it. It's going to be
it's going to be pretty heavy, ain't it?
Depth compression.
Compressions may be jumping up and down,
That's right.
Duncan wasn't doing. He was just trying to do what the boss man asked him to do, though, right?
Yeah, he's
Duncan was about as hard-headed as the donkey, though.
Yeah, he was hard-headed. He got set. He was going to do it his way, but he'd do it thoroughly, Like he had to feed the dogs first every morning, and he'd scoop the poop out of the pen, and he'd just throw it in the woods. He'd walk 200 yards and dump it and way on down the hill. I said, there you go. But you can't. I need you to hurry. No, I got to do this first. He is by
Got
the
to
law.
do that first.
He was by the law.
Hey, there ain't nothing wrong with that.
No, he was sterile as it come. I promise you.
So Matthew and I have traveled a little bit together. We've been to Nicaragua and the beach,
Oklahoma. Courtney and Sarah and me and Shane went to Sedona and rented a car and wanted to see as much as we could, and went to the Grand Canyon, and we'd asked some folks about dinner, steakhouse, and several had mentioned this place.
Numerous places, numerous people.
Black Bart's the name of the place. And so I look it up on my phone. It looks pretty good,
Steakhouse.
So we go in, and it's loud. They're
Immediately.
I'm talking about playing music. There's a stage up in there, and come to find out, it's next to, there's a college.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of these music students work in this restaurant, and they're the servers.
Theater.
It's theater, yeah. As you're eating, they'll be walking around, and they'll bring you your steak and just start singing to you right there on the spot.
Performing an act.
Dancing.
Up on the stage.
And sometimes they would pause everything they was doing. All the servers would go up there on the stage and perform. And so we're just Alabama folks, We're just trying to take all this in, and so we finally order, I guess.
And we're trying to communicate with one another over the music.
It was so loud, as close as the table wasn't no bigger than this table we're sitting at right now. You couldn't hear each other talk. It was so loud, and well, then Shane's gonna bless the food, and so I got my head bowed, and everybody does, and man, the sound just automatically increased, just got so loud, and so I'm sitting there, and I hear Shane was sitting actually where he is. He was to my left, and Shane bows his head, and I got my eyes closed, can't see nothing, and Shane said, "Lord, if you can hear me." And from that point, I lost it. Well, when my eyes opened up, the server was on a knee right there at Sarah, just singing his heart out, and never had any idea that we was trying to pray.
We're trying to say the blessing. That's who we are, right? I did not see the man come off the stage.
No, I never seen him.
You never saw him either. My
you had
wife.
your eyes closed.
I did.
I had them closed.
My wife saw him because they must have made eye contact, and he came immediately to my wife. Well, he has now brought the spotlight to Sarah Elizabeth while we're praying.
Everybody in the restaurant.
And everybody's looking. We don't know what's going on. She is center of attention. Everybody's looking. He is down on one knee, professing his love to her. And she has turned 12 shades of red and still turning colors. And he's still continuing to sing. So we say amen. We look up, and we are now aware of the situation that's taking place. And I'm embarrassed for my wife. Not for me. Like, I'm not embarrassed at all. But I'm embarrassed for my wife, right? And he continues to sing his song.
Finishes the song.
Finishes act. And departs. And my wife could not get past what has just happened. I mean, she is some more kind of embarrassed.
Did she eat?
She lost her appetite.
Yeah, she didn't eat a whole lot.
She didn't eat a whole lot, but there wasn't much to worry about because the food was nothing to write home about. That was the other disappointing thing.
Tell me another, Mr. Key. I can't wait.
I'll tell you, one of those young boys I was telling you about always hung out at my house. Well, I drove a milk tanker, and I'd get in different hours of the night, but when I come up the road, these 4 young boys lived down the road. I don't know, maybe a quarter of a mile, just cross the creek, leaving my house at first. We called it Harrisville because several of them lived in that one area, but good people. And they'd always, every time I'd come by, they'd be up there. By the time I got my brakes set down and all that, they was at my house. Well, this one night, Junior come by himself, and he said, "You want me to help you feed?" And I said, "Yeah, it was cold." And I said, "Yeah, it's going to rain a little bit, so help me feed right quick, and we'll be done." So he took my truck. I had a 76 Ford pickup truck, 3-speed on the column. That's what I taught them all how to drive in, so they could drive anything, they drive it. But he went down to the barn. He got him about 6 bales of hay, and you just come back by my house and drive over a little cattle gap I had and drive down another fence, and we just throw the hay across and spread it out for the cows. Well, I told him I'd change boots and I'd go help him. Well, he done went by the time I was going out the door, and I just followed along behind him. Well, it started drizzling rain. It was one of them dark nights, and I got nearly to him. He couldn't see me yet, and he was talking to himself. And I said, "Uh-oh, old Junior done scared." So he went and threw the bale of hay over, and he was just talking to himself. I'm talking about it. I said, "Man." So I laid down on the ground and rolled up on the truck. Well, he reached over the bell of the truck, and he got him a bale of hay, and I grabbed his leg and went, "Ah!" That son, he threw that bale of hay about 30 yards. And he hollered out, and every light come on down there in Harrisville, and his mama, "Junior, you okay?" I said, "Man." She said, "You son of a gun, you scared me to death, boy." I scared him good, boy. He about had a heart attack on me, but that goes to show you mama listened out for you. She know Junior was in trouble, boy.
Mama was waiting to hear if Junior was all right. That's pretty good.
Something got to hold that leg.
Yeah.
That's another truth there. Adrenaline
Oh,
make you have more power than you ever thought you had, too.
Yeah, he wasn't struggling with the hay. When I got that leg, he threw that bale of hay. I took that same bunch of boys. There was a bunch of them, and I took them snipe hunting. He was little. And Manashay, and we took him over by Palisades Park on that road, like going back to Color Bridge. And I gave him one of them little plastic flashlights, the one that ain't gonna work very long. And I set him out the bottom of that creek down there, and I said, "Now y'all hold this sack right here in this ditch, and I'll go top hill and I'll run them back to you, and y'all catch these snipe now." Well, they bailed out, and they was talking it up, and I gave him that flashlight. I went on up the hill, and I told Sharon to just keep on driving. I got out, and she got truck went on. Well, I climbed the bank on up the hill there. It didn't take them long. It sounded like I heard a cows come through. They was running. So some gonna run off and left us. The light wouldn't work. And they was hoofing it up that hill. And they got beside me, and I jumped off that bank on them. It sounded like a coyote. You ought to see that, boys. Some of them was going frontwards and backwards. They was going I said, "Man," so there ain't no such thing as snipe hunt, but I had them believing there was.
I had them believing there was, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
But I told a story not too long ago about the swamp monkey, and that Luke's sitting right over there. He learned all about them swamp monkeys up there in Gatlinburg, didn't he?
Now, one of y'all's got a story about eating possum. Whose is that?
Yeah, I'll tell you a good story about eating possum. A buddy of mine lived up on McCoy Mountain, and they had their old mule died, and they just drug it off the backside of the pasture there from their house. Well, him and his brother was messing around one day on a Saturday, and they was out there messing with that mule, throwing rocks at it, and all that thing was swelled up big as a barrel, done getting ripe. And they got out there close to it. Well, one of them, his old feet was sticking out. One of them grabbed his legs and wiggled his legs, and a bunch of possums run out of the back end of it. And they said, "Man, that's awful." So the next day, that same day, this boy was at Lucky's in Bluntsville, and he seen his aunt over there, and they was talking and said, "Yeah, it's my son's birthday." And said, his birthday wants possum, sweet potatoes for his birthday, so I'm over here getting some sweet potatoes. I got a good possum fattened out. I'm going to cook him possum, sweet potatoes for supper. Well, the next day was Sunday afternoon, and this guy come riding up the road, and they flag him down. Said, "Hey," he said, "you got a strong stomach?" And he said, "Man, you can't make me sick, 'cause I got a cast iron stomach." He said, "Well, Dad's mule died down there, so I bet you $5 I can get close to it than you can." He said, "It's on." So he gets out of the truck and he thumps that snuff can. He packs his lip full. They walk right up there to that mule. He said, "Don't bother me a bit." And this boy said, "I bet you I can tell you what you had for supper last night." And he said, "There ain't enough money in the world you can tell me what I had for supper last night." And he said, "You had possum sweep." And he kicked that old mule, and then 5 possum run out the back of that mule, and that son, he lost it. He hit the ground. Whoa, he lost his cookie and his possum. He said, "You ain't right, you son." He thought he just guessed. He ate that possum sweet potatoes, but he didn't want no more possum after
Didn't
that.
want no more possum after that.
That's why I don't eat possum this day.
Oh, man.
You seen him come out the back of the side of the mule, huh?
Yeah.
They's doing what they's designed to do.
Clean up.
Me and Tim Faulkner was coon hunting over at Easley Breeds with his daddy. And Mr. Easley had wheat planted in his pastures out there. And we was walking around the edge, and Jack, "Listen, boys, dogs run, you can't make no racket." So me and Tim was cutting up, and he said, "Y'all get on out of here now, I can't hear." So we go down the edge of the woods. We thought it was a big old rock. Had moss on it and all that. So we sat down there. We was talking, carrying on. Well, all of a sudden, a commotion set in. What the heck is that? And we go back up there and get Jack's light. We didn't even have our own light. We go back up and get Jack, his daddy's light. Jumped down there and said, "Yo, hush, ain't nothing down there." So we go back down there, and what we thought was a rock was a dead cow. And that we felt just like a mossy rock. She was stiff as a board. It was cold, though. She was froze. But there was a bunch of possums in there fighting inside her, making that racket.
Inside the
Yes.
cow?
I said, "What the heck is that?" It scared us. I said, "What's that racket, man?" Or something. But that's what it was. Possums in that dead cow fighting over that.
And y'all were just sitting on
We're
top
just
of
sitting
it.
on the cow talking like we are, And I said, "What's that racket?" We took off because kids being scared, So, daggum possums in there fighting.
You were sitting on a dead cow.
Yeah.
That's the first for me,
That's
Steve.
number
But it didn't
one.
smell a bit. Like I say, she just froze hard as a rock, and it felt just like a big old rock with moss on it, what it felt like. We just sat there and,
Y'all was having a big time.
yeah.
Mossy rock.
Mossy rock, the dead cat.
That's one thing. You're in the cattle business. You're in the livestock business at all. You know that look in the daytime because them legs they just splayed out like that. That ain't a good look. That ain't a good look.
Yeah.
But you couldn't tell it was.
No, we was on our backside, or hip bones, backbone side when we sat on.
With the possums fighting on the inside.
What are the
make
chances?
They make a heck of a racket too when they got to fighting. It scared us to death. We didn't know what got a hold of us.
I bet.
Well, I always thought that a possum would run from you, be scared of you. We coon hunted all our life, anytime. We never had no trouble with a possum. Raccoon's a little different. Well, Bradley caught one time in a cage, and he called me and said, "We need to go cut this thing loose." So we rode out in the woods and was going to cut it loose, and I literally thought we'd just go open the cage. It was a live trap, and the possum would run out, and that'd be the end of it. Well, I went out there and opened the gate, and it just
Give you a blank stare.
just blank stare, like it was stupid. Well, Bradley got fed up with it. He's ready to go on back home. Well, he kicked that cage, and that possum took one slow step, two slow step, three. Well, he wasn't going fast enough for him. So Bradley got that cage so that it wouldn't go back in it, jerked it, and threw it over there about 10 yards. And then he started running at that possum. He thought, like I thought, that possum was just going to run away from him. It turned to him and showed him all 64 teeth, and here he come after Bradley. He couldn't get spun around and run away fast enough, and I was howling. It was because I was not in danger. But I learned a possum will turn on you too. Even though how docile he looks, he'll eat you up if you ain't careful.
He's got teeth, and he ain't afraid to
I ain't
use
messed with
show
one
'em, yeah.
since that day. Because some people grab them by the tail and all this other thing. I saw those teeth that day. They got plenty of them.
plenty. Did you see the little video going around during Christmas with the guy that gave his mother-in-law or mother-in-law
Yes,
a
opened
possum?
up that possum, that live possum.
That
Yes.
was funny. Opened
As a
up
present?
as a present
I
in the
believe it.
living room.
Was that Derek Rainey? I can't remember who it was. Somebody we know done it.
Oh,
Had it wrapped up in a box. She opened that thing up. That thing took off. Run
Took
across
off
the floor.
and talking about the living room
Scattered.
empty.
Empty.
Yeah.
Empty.
They was on the back of the chair. And cats
Kids were
jumping around.
squalling, and he just reached over and grabbed it by the tail. and was chasing them around the living room.
We had one night. We was coon hunting again, and Randall Murphy was with us. Works on guns down there at All Good. He was a big coon hunter, and we was over at Andy's Holler on 5 Points Road, and old sycamore trees in the edge of the coal mines. It wasn't very tall, but it had all them limbs on them. Well, we treed that little old coon up there, and the dogs had him treed, and Randall said, I'm going to just shoot him in the tail so he come out and fight them dogs, you know. So he had a .22 pistol. He shot that thing, and he shot his tail because he was bleeding pretty good. But he'd come down, but he didn't want no part of them dogs. He'd go back up, come back down, go back up. Well, he'd run out of bullets. And Jack told Tim, said, get you a good sharp stick, and you go up there and poke that coon out. and Tim said, I ain't going to do it, Daddy. He said, I said do it. And so he gave him a stick, and he goes up that tree, and he had on, it was hot, and he had on a white T-shirt. Not a wife beater, had sleeves on it. It was a white undershirt. And Tim wore glasses, and they was pretty thick, bottle cap glasses we called them. But he goes up in that tree, and he pokes that coon. Well, that tree was so little, that coon come down his back, went on his head and went down his back. When he got to the dogs, he goes back up the tree. And when he did, Tim seen some blood. He said, he bit me, Daddy, I'm dying. He bit me. That coon was bleeding on his shirt. He thought that coon done nailed him. He said, he bit me, Daddy, he bit me, I'm dying up here. And he come down and said, you want that coon, you go get him yourself. I'm not going back up there. But that was the funniest tale. And his glasses was fogged up and they was crooked. You would have just had to be there to see it.
Like he'd been in a battle.
Yeah, man.
He was fighting.
About like Jerry Clare and the Lynx cat. That's what I thought about.
He was fighting for sure.
When I was in school, we had this teacher I loved her to death. And you got to realize now, I was in the 11th grade, and she was just out of college. She come rolling up in there in a big old bright Porsche car. Anyhow, I didn't like schoolwork, you know. I just liked going and hanging out with my buddies and all that. So we was taking a test, and the girl beside me, I just reached up there and got her paper and was going to cheat off her test. Well, she seen me. Well, she come back there and stood right behind me, and I had her paper under my paper. And she said, okay, class, everybody fold your papers and write your name on the back. Well, when I folded my paper, that girl's name was on the back. And I told her, I said, she didn't have nothing to do with it now. I just took her test, you know. Said she didn't have nothing to do with this. So she said, okay. So she's going to let me take it over, make that test up. Well, a buddy of mine had her the next period. He got caught cheating too. And Jay White, and he was going to make it up also. Well, I had football practice day. She had it lined up for the makeup. And so I couldn't take mine. Well, Jay went and took his. Well, he got a copy of the test. You know, he copied it down. Well, that night he brought it over my wife's. My wife now is my girlfriend at the time. And boy, I done a good job. I filled that test out. He had about 5 pages wrote out. Boy, she's going to think I really done good. Well, I put them things, fold them up, put them in my tube socks. Back in, y'all probably know what tube socks is. But I fold them things, put them in my tube socks. And I go in there, and I was with the underclassmen, the younger kids than me, was in there doing class, and I was going to make it up. Well, she sat on a podium kind of in front of her desk, right kind of in the corner of the room. And she drug a desk right beside her podium. I said, you sit there and take this test. Well, right beside her podium was a garbage can. I said, man, how am I going to pull this off now right here in front of everybody? So I was sitting there, and they was doing their lecturing, and I was writing on that paper that I had, and I was writing. Well, I'd get one done, and I finally just wadded them up the way, just slipped them out of my sock and laid them out there. And I thought, boy, I was free sailing. I got this handled, you know. Well, everything was good. The next day, we went to class, and before class started, she said, everybody listen up. This is very important. I have an announcement to make. And I said, what's this going to be? And she said, y'all never guess who made the highest test score in the class. I said, oh, no. And she said, Keith Fallon. And she beat on that podium, and he did not cheat. And I was back there going, oh, my God. Oh, my God. You didn't have to say that. You didn't have to say that. And believe it or not, I seen her when that Cleveland's Diner was still in business down here. Her and her daughter had been to a funeral. And I had to confess. I bought her dinner, and I confessed to her. I said, Miss Paul, I said, you crushed me to the bone on that. You and I never said that. So I'm talking about I hated that with a passion after doing that. But she said, that's what you get.
That's what you get.
Guilty conscience.
You toted that one around for a long time.
Long time.
How many years was it?
Shoot, probably 30 years. Long time.
Didn't ever forget it.
You feel better now?
Oh yeah, now
All
like her fast.
right, all right.
She was my butt. I can't believe she didn't kick me out of school. I had several incidents with her, but like I said, I loved her to death. I liked her. Really, it was my way of flirting with her.
Yeah,
'cause I
that's
thought
all
she
you
was
could do,
cute.
yeah.
Yeah, I thought she was the best looking thing since cornbread, but she was in there, and I got in trouble one day, and she'd had enough, and she said, out in the hall. Well, back then, you just had to get another teacher to watch you, and you could wear his tail out. Well, her room was right on the end, and across the room was Miss Cleveland, and right there at their room, the hall made a 90-degree turn, went toward the gym over at Cleveland. And she got there, and she got Miss Joan Cleveland on witness, and she reared back. She was pregnant this time. She was pregnant. She done got married, and she was pregnant, and she reared back with both hands, had on that paddle. She's going to wear me out. Well, I just run around the corner right quick. She said, you come back here, Keith Fan. You come back here right now. I said, I'm going to tear you up. I said, this ain't going to be good now. So I go back, and she's still kind of giggling under her breath, and all that. And she's reared back in, and she's going to really let me have it. She even done touched my rear end with it. She lined it up. And she swung at me, and I just hit the ground like I done a push-up. And she come around. When she did, she lost her balance. Like I say, she's a pretty good sized brain, and she fell on top of me.
Oh,
she was sitting on top of me. Well, that didn't get me out of the paddling. When she got up off of me, she wore my tail out. She gave me a good one. But I says, man, we're not done that to a pregnant woman. But I love her there. She's still my buddy today. But
You got to take care of the pregnant ladies.
Yeah, or not done that to a pregnant woman.
yeah.
Oh, that's pretty good.
The same pregnant lady, I sat in the back of the class in the last desk right in the middle of the row, and was watching a film one day, and I had a projector on my desk, was watching that film. Well, I don't remember what, I think Tim Faulkner might have brought the little plastic prison thing you look through like a Viewmaster, and it had a picture in there. We had a picture of a half-naked woman on there, and we was all looking at that and passing around. Well, Bradley Cox, I believe, was rearing his desk up. Somebody dropped that thing, and he went to let his desk down to get it, and his desk leg just hit right on it, just busted. Well, that little film come out. And I said, hey, hand me that. We'll watch it on the big screen like a dummy. So I just stuck it in there and turned that thing on, and oh, man. By that time, somebody went over and turned the dial, and it dropped down in there. Well, I couldn't get it out. I was shaking that projector upside down, trying to get that thing. And I said, man. Well, that same buddy of mine, Jay, he had that same desk. And I said, whatever you do, don't turn that thing on. There's a naked woman in there now. I said, don't you turn that film projector on. Well, I had Spanish the next period, and it's out her the hall and about 3 rooms down closer, going toward the office. Well, it wasn't long. I heard her squeal out, I'm going to kill him. Keith fella, I'm going to kill you. I said, oh, man. Well, she come waddling that thing, had that film projector under her arm. She's going toward the office, And it wasn't later on that day, the head man, he come and said, all you boys in that class, I need to meet with y'all. And I said, man, back then you didn't want to get no trouble like that. You get in sure enough trouble. Your daddy found out. But he said to everybody that had anything to do with that, be at the office in the morning before the first break bell rings. So I drove to school and had to carry my sisters to school. So I got them up early. So we got to leave early in the morning now. I got to get there early. So I got him up, I headed up there, and I was sitting out there in front of the office, and he come in, and he opened the office up and said, come on in. And he said, I know good and well you don't want to have anything to do with that. And I said, no, sir. And he said, I know you ain't going to tell me who else did. And I said, no, sir. And he said, that'd been a good joke for being in my class with all boys. He said, you're not done that, though. I said, I know it. And I said, I'm sorry. But he never did tell my daddy. If he had told my daddy, I wouldn't be here today telling no stories. I can promise that. Daddy would have killed me. But he let me by with it. And I said, I learned then, I said, your buddies will forsake you or something like that. They done flew the coop. They didn't want no part of that.
They
Ain't
took off.
showing up.
They weren't going to stand in there with you and take theirs, were they?
Sir.
Now, Keith will be there. He can just tote it by
Yeah,
himself.
he left me high and dry, buddy.
Ain't that something? As teenage boys, your mind don't play all the. It gets almost there, and then it just don't finish the job.
Yeah. That's wish I could go back and redo. I
Man,
guarantee I wish I could go back and redo. But
Well, yeah, now that you can think.
yeah,
We didn't know how to use I didn't know how to use my brain when I was in my 30s.
yeah, it was.
Your frontal cortex is completely developed now.
Yeah.
It's getting there.
It's getting there. Mr. Keith, you spent a lot of time in the truck there when you were younger. You bound to have some trucking stories.
Oh yeah, I drove a truck about 40 years, but I was driving a milk tanker in the early '80s, hauled the milk off the farm, and I was coming out of Dothan. I'd haul a load of cream down there once a week to the ice cream plant in Dothan, and it was about 3 o'clock in the morning. I was coming up 65 and getting on 459 there in Birmingham, and my brother worked at the hospital down there, and he had a little gray Ford Escort car. Well, just as I was getting on, we kind of come together, and I thought it was him. Well, he flashed his lights, and I come over and blinked my lights at him and told him thank you. So he kept flashing lights, so I pulled off on the side of the interstate, there on 459, and I didn't set my brakes. I was just looking because I was kind of leery. You know, I didn't have no gun nut on me. I was kind of leery about what was going on. Well, I seen somebody come up the passenger side of my truck. Well, they opened the door, and it wasn't my brother. And I had the truck running and all the traffic and all that. And I thought he said, "Do you know your way around?" What I thought he said. And I said, "Not really, I ain't from around here." And he kept on. I said, "What'd you say?" And he said, "Do you want to fool around?" I said, he was one of them different guys. I said, "Heck no, man, you better get the heck out of here." But, man. But I started to run over him. I started backing over that car, but I just put it in gear and took on to the house.
That's the only thing that saved you, Mr. Keith, is you was somewhere you didn't know your way around, and you said no.
Yeah.
And I'm not interested in learning my way around either.
No, sir. Not at all. I was wide awake then. That's the first time I ever had that to happen. I said, that ain't good.
Said we might get out of the trucking business. Huh?
There's some of all kinds, they say.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, we had one time. I was coming back from Dothan, too. And matter of fact, it was not he was born. Matthew was born. He was due to be born the next morning about daylight. And a buddy of mine, Jeff Ellis, he's going to ride with me, keep me awake, because I'd run my routes and I'd go all the way to Dothan and I'd come back. So he went with me. I'll go with you. Well, the old truck was a 1973 Diamond Rio. Not no sleeper on, just two-seater, bucket seats. And, man, we come back and he couldn't drive. And I was batting my eyes. I said, man, I'm wore out. I got to have some sleep. So right below Montgomery on 231 coming north, there, a little rest area, truck stop looking deal thing there. So I pulled in there. Well, I could never sleep with my truck running. I always had to turn it off, even though it was in the wintertime. Well, I had a board, and he laid across the seats. I laid that board down. That's where I usually took a nap. And he laid across the seat, and I got down the floorboard. And everything was nice and quiet. Man, I went right off to sleep. Well, there's one of these gas trucks, all this butane gas, come in beside me sometime, and he left his truck running. Well, I kind of woke up a little bit and heard that truck run. By that time, his air dryer blowed off and air spewed out, and I thought I was wrecking. I'd come out of there and I'd hit my head on that steering wheel. I'd hit my head, and Satch was hollering, "Hold on, man, what's going on?" I said, I'm wrecking, get the steering wheel. And I was wide awake then, too. We come on to Onion and had a young'un then. He was born about 2 hours after we got home. But
golly.
I said, that's another story I won't never forget.
That is
Still
terrible.
a nightmare. He's still living with a nightmare.
He get born that night. Still won't never forget it.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Mr. Keith, won't you sum us up here? Bring us to the close.
I got one more, I'll tell you. I had this young guy that rode my bus, good old kid, country boy, and they called him Cowboy. He was a cowboy. He rode horses and broke horses and talked. He'd sit on the front seat because most times he's in trouble. He'd sit on the front seat and talk to me, and I'd keep him occupied. But he kept on wanting to work for me. Let me work for you. Well, one time it rolled around, I was going to be working cattle down there at that farm. I was telling you about that lower farm. And I said, you can work for me. We're going to work cows today. He said, okay, good. We get down there. He didn't want to run through the chute. He wanted to be the real cowboy. He wanted to be on the back tailing them, what you call tailing them. You hold their tail up over the back. And then I was a lot younger, and I'd done my own cutting. And I told him, I said, well, your job is don't let me get kicked or crapped on. I said, you hold that tail up good. And I said, if he goes to crap, you put your hand back there and you catch it. Don't you let it get on me. Well, I'd done cut several calves and thought more about that. And all of a sudden he says, God, that's gross. That stuff's hot. I looked up and he had a whole handful of cow crap smoking in his hand. I started laughing. He said, what are you laughing about? I said, I was just kidding you. He said, you son of a gun, you ain't right. I said, I was just kidding you, man. You don't have to do that. But he caught that calf crap when he was pooping.
Yeah, he was doing that job.
He was doing it right, man.
Doing what he's told.
Man, just obedient.
Yeah, he was obedient for sure. But I laughed at him about that every time I'd see him. I said, you ever been cutting in calves lately? He said, hush up.
Gracious. When you said that,
Oh, man. Yeah.
Let me get the word here. We're going to go to Ephesians 4:1-3.
We just right on in there, huh?
Just real quick like. Ephesians 4:1-3. Therefore, I, a prisoner for serving the Lord, beg you to lead a life worthy of your calling, for you have been called by God. Always be humble and gentle. Be patient with each other, making allowance for each other's faults because of your love. Make every effort to keep yourselves united in the Spirit, binding yourselves together with peace. The centerpiece of this is walking a walk. So the writer of this is in prison for walking a walk. Mm-hmm. And that was the first profound thought I had as I started studying this week is, it's easy for you to tell somebody else to walk a walk that you ain't walking. We do it all the time. You need to go. You need to go. But I thought to myself, if I'm reading this letter and he's telling me to do these things that are very difficult, it is difficult to be patient. It's one of the worst things for me on the planet. I'm not a patient person. It's difficult for me to be gentle in a lot of situations. But he's sitting there telling these people that, so y'all believe in Jesus Christ, that's good. But there's more. And there's walking a walk as being a follower of Jesus Christ. And the crazy part is he is in jail because he actively practiced what he preached. And I thought if I was receiving this letter, I was like, man, this guy does believe in what he's telling me to do. He believes it's the right thing to do this. But look at these characteristics. So if you ever wonder, I'm a Christian, now what? I believe that Jesus is Lord and Savior. Next steps. Well, here's part of it. I beg you to lead a life worthy of your calling. So worthy of the fact that Jesus has called and saved your soul. And then the specifics are being humble, not easy. Being gentle, not easy. Being patient with each other, Shane, not easy. Making allowance for each other's faults. Shane, for you, in my regard, not easy. And then lastly, and it says, because of your love, make every effort to keep yourself united in the Spirit. And the Spirit of God that dwells inside of believers is the only hope for us to be able to walk worthy anyway. And so I guess he's saying, be led by the Spirit of God and walk worthy of your calling.
It's tall order.
It's a big old glass, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But thank God, as we've said in here many other times, with the power of the Holy Spirit, we can do it.
God help.
I think that's the biggest problem today. A lot of people don't wait for the leading of the Holy Spirit. They want to go out there on their own and say stuff and bring up stuff and put on the show when it's not no spirit in it.
There ain't no spirit in it.
That
ain't
ain't
like got no gas in it.
Ain't got no gas. You're one of that part of that scripture says, be aware of your calling. Our calling is not our calling. We're called by God, and that's what you're speaking to there. So many times we take it on ourselves that this is my calling. This is what I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. And normally that doesn't end up so well. Mm-hmm.
If you'll walk behind him, typically he'll lead you to the right spot. But
that's part of being humble.
You got to be humble. Mm-hmm. You got to be patient. It just all applies. And it's just the Christian walk that I'm not sitting here telling you I got figured out, but I'd like to figure it out a little more. I really appreciate you making the commitment, coming out, sitting down with us, telling some good stories.
Yeah, these are two busy boys now. I mean, I can't believe we got that. If you want to come across them at some point in time, you can meet them over at Blount County tractor or the pipe yard or on a school bus or in the hayfield or
under trucks waiting on you to grab your ankles and scare the mess out of you.
you can find Matthew down there at the beach at one of his condos or
In the mountains.
in the mountains at his condo up there, and maybe selling some real estate for you. I mean, there's all manner of stuff.
You know what they say. Can't hide money.
That's exactly right. And there ain't no place I'd rather be than around two Fallons at the end of the day. Somebody's bound to lose some pocket change.
I'm wealthier right now. Just saying.
That's exactly right.
We appreciate your time and invitation.
All kidding aside, you've really enriched us, and that's the truth. You've blessed us. But that's going to do it tonight, the Hayden Alabama Podcast. I'm Philip.
I'm Shane.
I'm Matthew.
I'm Keith.
We'll see you guys next week.